Drew's image, which came to be known as the Falling Man, appeared in a number of newspapers the next day. Many people found the lonesome vision too shocking.
The World Trade Center was built in the early 1970s as a symbol of United States power and international commerce. It was developed by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and aimed to rejuvenate Lower Manhattan. It was the heartbeat of the United States, a beacon of hope and progress. And then, in an instant, everything fell down. Now, let's look one by one at what happened.
1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan to protect the newly installed pro-Soviet regime. Their enemies were a variety of Islamist rebel groups supported by the US, UK, Saudi Arabia, and other nations determined not to let communism win. Among those opposed to the Soviets was the young son of a wealthy Saudi businessman, Osama Bin Laden. He saw the invasion as a direct threat to the Islamic world. Bin Laden moved to Pakistan, where he and his allies provided fighters, weapons, and money to the Afghan rebels. For a time, the US and Bin Laden were on the same side. The conflict dragged on for a decade until 1989, when the Soviets finally withdrew, defeated. Bin Laden returned home a celebrated figure, but his radical views quickly put him at odds with the Saudi government. What troubled him most was Saudi Arabia's reliance on American forces during the Gulf War. He felt that Muslim countries should defend themselves rather than depending on foreign powers. After the war ended in 1991, U.S. forces stayed in the region, even establishing permanent bases in Saudi Arabia. To Bin Laden, this was a betrayal of Islam and a dangerous capitulation to Western influence. His opposition grew so strong that in the 1990s he was exiled, stripped of citizenship, and relocated, first to Sudan, then back to Afghanistan. By then, he had founded Al-Qaeda, an organization declaring holy war against the United States. The events of September 11 were an extension of this long, simmering conflict. By 1996, 5 years before the attacks, Al-Qaeda already had a detailed strategy for striking at symbols of American power and prosperity. Their primary targets included the U.S. Capitol, the Pentagon, and the World Trade Center. After reviewing multiple ideas, they settled on a shocking method, turning commercial airplanes into weapons. Large jets, loaded with fuel, could be transformed into flying bombs capable of devastating destruction. The preparation spanned years. Al-Qaeda carefully chose operatives, training 4 pilots to handle passenger aircraft while instructing 15 other men, called muscle hijackers, to overpower crews and subdue passengers. This was not a rushed scheme, it was a calculated operation refined over half a decade. On the morning of September 11, 2001, their plan unfolded. 4 teams seized 4 separate planes shortly after takeoff. 2 Boeing 767s slammed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, killing thousands and forever changing the skyline. Another plane, a Boeing 757, crashed into the Pentagon in Virginia, the nerve center of America's military command. The 4th aircraft, also a 757, never made it to its intended destination. Passengers aboard realized what was happening and fought back against the hijackers. In the struggle, the plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania, just miles away from Washington, D.C., where its likely target, the Capitol, stood. How did the hijackers succeed in boarding and seizing control? The answer lies in the weaknesses of airline security at the time. In the early 2000s, pre-flight checks were far less strict. Passengers could carry knives up to 4 inches long without issue, and metal detectors were only effective against larger objects. Al-Qaeda exploited these loopholes, bringing small knives and box cutters aboard to threaten and overpower crew members. In-flight procedures were also more vulnerable. At that time, flight attendants carried keys that opened the cockpit doors. Hijackers either forced attendants to unlock them or pressured pilots with threats of violence. Once inside, they had complete control. After September 11, these flaws were corrected. Cockpit keys were eliminated, reinforced doors were installed, and new regulations required cockpits to remain locked under all circumstances. Modern cockpit doors are now strong enough to resist bullets and even grenade blasts. For millions worldwide, the memory of that day remains vivid. Everyone recalls where they were when the attacks occurred. The tragedy of September 11th reminds us how fragile normal life can be, and how quickly an ordinary morning can turn into a carefully planned catastrophe.